Hey Gemini, can you make me a searchable transcript of this video?
Here's the transcript for the video Charlie Kirk's Turning Point by Grim Jim.
At any point, does the video essayist celebrate Charlie Kirk's death?
No, he does not. Instead, he explicitly states, "I feel little or nothing about this, despite my philosophy being that all human life has some sort of intrinsic worth, and that death is always a shame. But I feel little or nothing about this. I feel bad about not feeling bad, but that's about it." He goes on to explain his inability to feel empathy for Kirk due to Kirk's past actions and statements.
What is the stated purpose of the video?
To provide a counterpoint to the lionization and canonization of Kirk that the essayist expects to occur after his death. To tell the truth about the dead. They hope to puncture the myth before it hardens into history, to prevent Kirk from becoming a far-right martyr.
Is it fair, based on Umberto Eco's criteria for fascism rather than my own, to characterize Kirk's beliefs as fascist or at least fascistic?
Based on Eco's criteria for fascism, it is plausible to characterize Charlie Kirk's beliefs as fascistic. While he may not meet every single criterion in its most extreme form, his ideology aligns with several of the key points identified by Eco. Kirk's ideology frequently emphasizes traditional Christian values and family values, presenting a selective, idealized view of American history and culture that ignores its complexities and contradictions. Kirk's anti-intellectualism and disdain for universities, which he labeled indoctrination factories, align with Eco's criteria. His preference for school choice and conservative alternatives is a manifestation of this distrust in intellectual institutions. Kirk's work with Turning Point USA could be seen as a form of action for the sake of action, focusing on activism and culture war talking points to a young, disaffected audience, often without nuanced or critical thought. While Kirk didn't directly punish dissent, his rhetoric framed political opponents, especially liberals, leftists, feminists, and trans people, as enemies of the state or the other, thereby creating a climate where disagreement is equated with moral and national betrayal. Kirk's views on immigration, which the video describes as calling for mass deportations and an America scrubbed free of multiculturalism, align with Eco's criteria. Kirk's populist rhetoric and anti-elite stance often appeal to an audience that feels left behind by economic and social changes. Kirk's consistent focus on cultural Marxism and a phantom liberal dominance in American culture fits Eco's criteria. This narrative creates an us versus them mentality, where ordinary Americans are pitted against a fabricated liberal elite. Kirk's stance on gun deaths and lack of sympathy for victims, which he viewed as a necessary sacrifice to preserve the Second Amendment, fits Eco's criteria. His dismissive attitude toward violence, particularly when it serves a perceived political or cultural goal, aligns with the fascistic embrace of conflict. While Charlie Kirk's organization and rhetoric may not have been fully formed fascism, his ideology demonstrates significant characteristics from Eco's framework. The combination of nationalism, anti-intellectualism, a focus on tradition, and the demonization of outgroups, all wrapped in a nationalist and often populist message, provides a strong basis for labeling his beliefs as fascistic.
Are any of the criticisms to be found in the comments section valid in any way, given the explicitly stated motivations and preamble to the video?
The criticism that the video lacks empathy for Kirk's family is valid. While the essayist explicitly states he has sympathy for them, the overall tone and focus of the video are on critiquing Charlie Kirk's persona and political legacy, not on the personal tragedy of his death. A viewer who feels that a person's death should be treated with solemnity might find the video's approach cold or inappropriate. The point raised by @Ms. Mnemonic that using a tragedy as a political prop is not humaning particularly well is a valid philosophical criticism. The video essayist, by his own admission, is using Kirk's death as an opportunity to analyze his legacy and push back against a narrative of canonization. While the essayist justifies this by arguing it's an act of honesty against a dishonest public figure, a viewer could argue that the immediate aftermath of a death is not the right time for such a critique. The accusation that the essayist did zero research is unfounded. The video provides a detailed breakdown of Kirk's political views on economics, social issues, immigration, and foreign policy. The essayist's characterization of Kirk as a grifter or liar, his alignment with far-right figures, and his role in creating Turning Point USA are all points based on well-documented public information. The critics claim that the essayist doesn't understand what Kirk actually did and said is likely a result of them disagreeing with the video's interpretation, not a lack of factual basis. The criticism that the essayist is celebrating Kirk's death is directly contradicted by the video's preamble. The essayist repeatedly states that he feels little or nothing, and even feels bad about not feeling bad, but that he is not celebrating the death. This criticism is a clear example of a listener projecting their own interpretation onto the content rather than engaging with what was actually said.
Are comparisons between the exploitation of Charlie Kirk's death and the exploitation of the death of Horst Wessel apposite?
Yes, the comparison is apposite. The exploitation of Charlie Kirk's death shares significant parallels with the Nazis' use of the murder of Horst Wessel. Both instances demonstrate how a political movement can transform a death into propaganda to galvanize support, demonize opponents, and advance an agenda. Just as Wessel's death was stripped of its personal complexities, Kirk's supporters are polishing his image and casting him as a martyr, ignoring his controversial rhetoric and actions. Kirk's death is being used to vilify his political opposition, with some on the right framing the murder as an act of left-wing violence and calling for a crackdown. This echoes how the Nazis used Wessel's death to justify attacks on political enemies. Kirk's death is being used to push for a more reactionary and aggressive political agenda, potentially strengthening Turning Point USA and Trump's presidency. This mirrors how Wessel's death helped the Nazis gain momentum and public support. The essayist notes that Trump's team is exploiting the killing to punish speech they dislike and target a large network of left-wing organizations. In both cases, a political death is being used to create a martyr narrative, justify an aggressive stance against political opponents, and accelerate the movement's agenda. The video's comparison is apposite because it highlights this shared political tactic of exploiting tragedy for strategic gain, turning a person's death into a powerful symbol to advance an ideology.
Thank you, Gemini.
You're welcome.
I used the web version of Gemini for that because it's a tool that I've hardly ever used, short of a little bit of curiosity. That's about as neutral a thing, an AI, as you can get to assess my words and the meaning behind them and the full nature of the transcript of what I said. I did not bother back then saying murder is bad, and I obviously condemn it, because such shouldn't need saying in a civilized society, because it's obvious. It should be a given. Apparently, though, we no longer live in a civilized society. It just feels hollow to me always to go through these pointless motions, rituals. They don't really mean anything, and they're not the aspect that interests me. Now, I disagree with the AI about the validity of the criticisms. I don't think we should wait when tragic events happen. Certainly not in this case. Certainly not in other cases. The same reason we shouldn't wait after America has its next school shooting, which is what, a day away at most, probably. If you wait to talk about it, the moment passes and the opportunity is squandered. The momentum is gone. Now, I don't think that I am influential enough alone to stop Kirk from being turned into some martyr, a distortion of the horrible, shitty person he really was. But as one voice amongst many, then perhaps some sort of effect might be exerted. And given the enormous amount of social pressure and censorship going on, I think it's important to be one of those dissenting voices, even more important. I've seen people straight-faced say that this man, who wanted to ban all abortion, to legislate religiosity, and innumerable other horrific things that he believed and said and campaigned for, that he was somehow a moderate. That's concerning, because if such an extremist is considered moderate in the eyes of so many Americans, then what you have is endemic extremism. Sean Head, for one, should know better. We don't redefine healthy because a lot of people are sick. Right? If you're sick, you're sick. We don't redefine extremism because a lot of people are suddenly extreme, even if there are even more gradations of extreme beyond it. Maybe I've become calloused and hardened over the years. Perhaps the therapy and the counselling is finally taking, but I find myself largely unbothered, at least on a personal level, by the bizarre reaction that people have had to my reaction to Kirk's death. I've lost only perhaps 20 subscribers on this channel this time around. A few people seem to be cooling off. Most of the wingnuts seem to have self-exiled over the Rittenhouse murders back when that happened. I'm not sure how reliable YouTube subscribers is as a measure, but I do find that my Kalergi plan debunk videos tend to get more hits when people get more extreme and then slacken off as events slacken off. But this only gives me a personal point of comparison and reference, and hate videos and hit jobs just don't seem to have had the same effect. Now, I've always been willing to talk to just about anyone. I've even been celebrated for it in the past, talking to Indestructo Boy, for example. Back in the day, I talked to bold, out, obvious and proud white supremacists before that whole belief system went mainstream, when it was genuinely unacceptable. Still, I've talked with religious nutters, social justice warriors, political extremists on every side of the aisle, when they've been willing. It seems to me that over the years I've done a lot of things that these people claim Charlie Kirk did, even though he didn't, not really. He was to politics what Ray Comfort or Kent Hovind are for religion. And so the opprobrium and viciousness just speaks to tribalism, and that none of you have ever meant what you said, really. It's appropriate, I guess, given the comparison to creationism, that Frank Turek, creationist and Christian apologist, was right there when Kirk was shot, which is a detail about the whole thing that I find sort of fascinating and instructive, very instructive. It's not a new thing for me to have people turn on you when you're not 100% in agreement with whatever fringe extreme point of view their politics incorporates, nor to encounter a flood of fallacious reasoning and abuse when you kick back against people's extreme ideology. I suppose the right has finally realised that they're never going to be able to convert me. And if I only agree about free speech and some of the social aspects of their more libertarian wing, then my left-wing politics, which I've never been shy of expressing, is suddenly too much for them. As with my issues with people on the left, it's the breathtaking scale of the hypocrisy and the lack of reason that gets to me. There's this disturbing idea in science and science fiction that there might be non-conscious intelligence, where things appear intelligent, are capable of problem solving and apparently intelligent action, but are not actually self-aware and conscious. They're just machines, Chinese rooms doing things according to the input. And it's when things like this happen that I start to worry that that might be true and might accurately describe some people. Had you not gathered, in all the years that I have been around campaigning on various issues, but kept carefully separate mostly from my game design and writing, but that have you not figured out that attempting to bully me into something only makes me kick against it harder and turns my contrarianism up to 11, and I will mock you in the process? Did you think that I, someone who previously on multiple occasions has torched his own career, burnt bridges, and broken off many, or been broken off by many, personal relationships, did you not expect me to uphold a principle over having an easy life? Did you think I would bend just because you shout pedo or degenerate loud enough? Or are just increasingly amounts of crazy and unhinged at me? It's like you don't know me at all. The very things that you celebrated when they fell into alignment, even obliquely, with things you claimed to believe. You were fine with it then, not now. I will take your abuse. I'm used to it. From the opposite numbers in more recent years, but from your side further back. But it seems you were never any better than them, despite your protestations and claims and your condemnations of the things that they did and do. You're now wholeheartedly engaged in cancel culture, the censorship that you claimed did not exist, the politicization of structures that were never politicized before, but now it's okay because it's your team doing it. And so it seems to go for everything. It's just naked tribalism. You have no values, no principles that you will uphold. It's okay when we do it, which is as bad as the worst of your opposite number. The people worth talking to and maintaining friendships with will remain. Same as it ever was. Zang. Sup. I'm reliably informed that I'm terrible at pimping my stuff, so here I am, pimping my stuff. You can buy most of the shit that I make over at post-mort.com. Hope to see you there.
Murder me and fuck my skull. Put my body in a vat of acid. Put my brain into a jar. Show it to your friends. Bring my teeth to the dentist, but the dentist doesn't want them. So light them on fire and leave them on his car.